With Adam Sandler's busy schedule, releasing a movie every year, coupled with the pandemic, the wait is finally over. It's been 4 years since the first installment of Murder Mystery, and the wait for the sequel has been
not long enough.
The first installment was average at best. Nothing to write home about, but also nothing to complain about either. So, it wasn't crazy to expect something of a similar quality, or even better, from the sequel.
You serious?
In the first installment of this comedy whodunit, Nick and Audrey Spitz, played by Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston, celebrated their 15th wedding anniversary by going on a vacation to Europe. The couple got a chance to go on a yacht thanks to the inexplicable generosity of a wealthy stranger. The billionaire owner of the yacht was murdered, and for the rest of the movie they were caught up in trying to solve the crime. All of this was unnecessarily recapped at the beginning of the sequel, with the aid of a voice-over narrator, no less. Yeah, it wasn't off to a great start. Anyway, the couple's egos are sufficiently inflated by their success in the first movie that they decide to go out on their own as a husband and wife private eye team. Things aren't going great business-wise because they are terrible at investigating. Who would have thunk?
Not me.
Their old friend, the foul-mouthed Maharaja, calls from out of the blue and invites them to his wedding on an exotic island. The island is beautiful and full of color. At the party in the evening of their arrival, there is lots of dance, dress, and opulence on display. The Maharaja is supposed to make a grand entrance, but in his stead is his bodyguard with a knife in his back. By the way, the Maharaja is set to marry a woman who is best friends with his former fiancée. The former fiancée happens to be the Maharaja's current fiancée's maid of honor. Make that make sense. Also, the said Maharaja has an antisocial sister, and the formerly handless, now armless colonel is back in the sequel for good measure. He is supposed to be the Maharaja's second bodyguard. Yeah, nothing could go wrong with that, right?
That doesn't make any sense!
Great. So now we have a murder and a kidnapping case that our bumbling hero couple can fumble through for the next hour. Not unlike the first movie, a real detective lands on the scene to take charge. But, what do you know? The kidnappers will only speak to the guy they shot at as they were getting away with the Maharaja. Makes sense. How else would the stars of the show retain their relevance to the story? So off to France they go to rescue their friend. The ransom drop-off predictably goes south, and what do you know? Just like the first movie, the couple are on the news as the main suspects in the kidnapping of the Maharaja. A series of over-the-top deaths and exchanges of the ransom money take place, and what do you know? The incompetent Inspector Delacroix is back. Basically, everyone who survived or wasn't incarcerated from the first movie made it to this one. By this point, I'm praying that Netflix doesn't greenlight a third installment. There's a showdown at the Eiffel Tower. Of course, it's not like there's nowhere else in France with cool buildings and majestic scenery now, is there? At the showdown, Nick can suddenly hold his own in a fight against 4 bad guys that are supposed to be ex-MI6. This is the same guy who couldn't pass a detective's exam. Yeah. And of course his wife Audrey can handle herself one-on-one against the villain who is an MI6 legend. Why would anyone be surprised? Don't we all know that every hairdressing college has a hand-to-hand combat course? All makes sense. In their convoluted way, we eventually discovered that the antisocial sister of the Maharaja was the bad guy all along.
Did not see that coming.
This was supposed to be an easygoing comedy with a little silliness. What we got instead was all silliness and no comedy. It reminded me of those spoof movies of the late 90s and early 2000s. Everything was so over the top back then, it could only be justified by the low budget. Murder Mystery 2 can't use that excuse, unless that's what they were going for from the onset, and in that case, they nailed it.
Nailed it! Oh boy!
The failing of this movie and its predecessor is that they are just a 90-minute excuse to see Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston acting together. All other characters are incidental and don't have enough screen time nor depth of character for the audience to feel any way about them. For all intents and purposes, they are just overpaid extras. All in all, this sequel gets 1 star, and that's in large part because I didn't have to go to the cinema to watch it. As they say, brevity is the soul of wit, so I'll leave it at that, and until next time.
I'll be back.